Hello, my friends. So, the interview that you're about to watch is with Matt, originally from New Zealand. Now, I need to give you some backstory on this because this is definitely what you'd call a non standard interview. So, we've already done this interview once, and I had a bunch of technical problems. Interestingly, there's a part where he tells me about communication with an NHI, and it was exactly at that point that things started um, getting crunchy on the original file, and then the whole file got corrupted and lost. So after a bit of panic, he just agreed to redo it, the whole thing. And it's 2 o'clock in the morning, and he sat out in his car with very low bandwidth and a bike light in his face for some illumination. So that is why the video and the audio look so bad. The best thing to do is put subtitles on, because there's a lot of bits where the bandwidth drops in and out. But it's a fascinating account. And again, when we look at these beats that keep happening in these encounters, there is a near death experience, there is orbs, there is communication with God of sorts, there is later communication with an NHI, and there is this profound ontological shift, giving him a totally different outlook on life. So he's a really interesting guy, and for me, it was very important that I do my best in getting his experience over to you. So I hope you really enjoy it. And this is Matt. Kick into it. So I really appreciate you redoing this because obviously we've done this before. We had an amazing conversation, and then fate or just my bad tech or something, the ETs got in the way and corrupted the file. So it is the middle of the night where you are, and I really appreciate you taking another run at this. So
That's fine, man.
yeah, so tell us a little about. Obviously, you've had repeated contact with the strange side of life. Like numerous things that other people don't take for granted, like a near-death experience. You've seen orbs. There's information that comes through to you. So, what's that like to live with on a day-to-day basis?
Well, in the beginning, and I say beginning in a way that's like when I had very limited understanding of what it was I was experiencing compared to now. Like even now, I'm still not fully aware of what it is I'm experiencing, but over the years, I've learned a lot of uh, not what it is, but more like how to deal with it. Because like when I was younger, or at least a few years ago, when I like early on, um, it was stressful, man. Like you think you're losing your marbles and you're going off the plot, and even people like friends, family, they tell you like, are you okay? Like, and like I'm not the kind of person who just goes off and like instantly believes the first thing they hear, sort of thing. Like I'll scrutinize and criticize everything until I think that it's fact. I won't like just believe like crap sort of thing, like bullshit. But it takes a long time to come to terms with because a lot of the things you don't know for sure. And because of that, you have to like the only sort of truths that you can compare it to is other experiences, like through what other people have experienced, or doing your research and seeing like common themes, like people that have also experienced these things, or even just natural phenomena that happen, and you wonder like, oh, well, that happened to me, or like, oh, I can see how that happened to them. Like it's because you've experienced it yourself. But in the beginning, it was stressful because you don't know how to deal with it. You don't know which way forward to go. And it's like, it's the kind of thing where like up is down, left is right. Like there is no sense of grounding because it's just so far-fetched. Like you would think that it was impossible almost. But I guess as time goes on, you learn to be less fearful because there's like two ways you can go about it, sort of thing. Like, you can fear, and then you probably won't really learn much if you're afraid because it's not based on anything that's sort of set in reality. And even then, it's hard to set something in reality because it's like, what is reality? Like, you wouldn't know right from wrong when you've experienced something for the first time, and you don't know whether or not it's like true or real. Not until at least you start hearing it from other sources that are just completely arbitrary, or like you wouldn't expect to have heard a story from someone that was so eerily similar to your own. And that's for the most part some of the things where I thought, hey, maybe what I experienced isn't so far fetched. Like maybe it's a common occurrence among people, but just because the fact that people are so separated from one another that it seems like it's highly, highly unlikely.
Yeah, man.
Um,
From doing this series, it's been incredible to me. Like speaking to all these different people with different belief systems and different cultures who've had a really similar or at least like parallel experience, but then they, because it's not what we accept as reality, they kind of don't share their story too publicly. It's a very personal thing, but then it's almost like because that doesn't happen, then whatever we consider reality never gets updated. But your story in particular was absolutely fascinating to me, and it's incredible how many people have like one guy described it as the dark night of the soul. Like he went and had this amazing paranormal experience, and then afterwards was just like, oh my god, what am I, what is reality, like what is everything, and had to really kind of face himself for a little while. So did everything kind of start with your near death experience, or was there anything peculiar that you remember before it?
the only experience I had before the near death experience was when I was super young, and I was like 3, 4 years old, and I was on a swing set, just playing on a swing by myself, and it was about sunset, so like 5 p.m. And I looked in the sky. It was like Christmas Eve, and I heard like Christmas bells, like the rain, like shh, shh. I don't know, I can't do Christmas bells, but I heard that, and I looked in the sky, like jingle bells. I looked in the sky and I saw like a sleigh, like, and it was pacing through the sky, and like, but I could see it in such clear detail that I saw all the reindeer. I saw Rudolph's red nose in the front of the pack. I saw, a jolly fat man in a red suit with a white beard holding a sack over his shoulder. And I looked up and I saw him and I heard him say, ho, ho, ho. And then he just sort of just shot off. And yeah, that happened. And I didn't think nothing of it because I was like 4 years old. I was just like, hey, I ran inside, told my parents I saw Santa. Like, oh, whatever. Yeah, didn't believe me. That was the first ever something that I saw that I just couldn't. Even to this day, like, you figure out when you grow up, Santa's not cool or whatever. But I still believe that's what I saw in the sky.
Well, it's interesting though that that
But
memory's never
yeah,
faded or anything, though, has it?
it is quite interesting. Like you would think, even like after growing up and realizing the truth, Santa's not real, Easter Bunny's not real. But why didn't that memory shake after confirming that he's not real? Like I can still see it clear as day now, like him moving through the sky. Like, I never really paid it too much attention because when you get told so many times, you didn't see nothing, then what can you do? No one's going to
Yeah.
believe you. You're the only one that saw it. What's the point in even progressing, sort of thing? Yeah, but then I think you I never actually considered that the near-death experience was the beginning of all the other experiences. Like I never tried to attempt to create a timeline of supernatural experiences.
Hmm.
But now that you mention it, like after that near-death experience, I did have quite a lot of, you know, what would you call it, esoteric experiences or something.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, a lot of people talk about trauma as a trigger, and it's whether it's trauma or from an accident or emotional or anything like that. There seems to be something which kind of kicks the door open to whatever this thing is, and whether it's going on all the time and we just don't notice it, or whether we become noticeable after an event like that. I don't know, but there's definitely a correlation there. So your near death experience was absolutely fascinating, man. So if you don't mind, could you talk us through it again?
Yeah, so I would have been about 11, 12 years old, like around that age, between 10 and 12. I want to say 11. It's quite young. Um, Me, my brother, and my stepdad went to, we were on our way to aquarium, but the aquarium's right on the beach. And as we sort of got to the aquarium, we saw these massive waves. They would have been like 5, 6 meter swells. And so me and my brother had the smart idea of running in and out of these waves. Run in, and then as they're coming towards you, run back up to the shoreline. And we did that about 3, 4 times, and then one of the waves got us, and it ripped us right out. Like I'm pretty sure we were stuck in a rip tide. And anyway, we're drowning. Well, I'm drowning. My brother can swim. He's a little bit older than me, and so he seemed all right. Like, we were both in panic mode, but I was just getting smashed by these waves, and we ended up getting pulled out maybe 90 meters. At least that's what the report said afterward. Got ripped out 90 meters into the ocean. My brother managed to make it back to the shore, but then he like jumped back in to come and get me. And failing that, he got back out of the water, got up to the shore, ran up to our stepdad, and our stepdad can't swim, so he ran into the aquarium to try and find some help. Meanwhile, I'm still 90 meters out in the water, dunking and diving, and it was an intense experience because I remember like I was drowning, like struggling to get to the surface to breathe, and holding my breath for what felt like long periods of time. And then my particular memory is I started feeling really tired, and I was like, "Oh man, fuck, I'm so tired. Like I might just go to sleep." I remember wanting to go to sleep, and then so I just closed my eyes, and everything sort of started getting really dark, like at this dark circle. Well, not the dark circle, more like the darkness was surrounding my vision, and it was getting smaller and smaller, and like I was like, "Yeah, I'm just gonna go to sleep." And then as the like it got really small, I had the thought like, "Hang on a minute, I'm drowning. Like I'm underwater, and I'm holding my breath." And then I thought like, "I don't want to die." And so I said like a prayer to like, in my culture. I'm Maori from New Zealand, and so we have like gods for different aspects of nature, I guess. God of the sky, God of the forests, God of the oceans. And so I said a prayer to the God of the oceans, and I was like, "Hey man, like, I don't want to die. Like, help me." And when I said that, the darkness like just fully consumed, and like I couldn't see nothing. I didn't go to sleep. Like I still felt like I was conscious. Pretty sure I was conscious the entire time of the event, actually. But what happened was I started seeing like flashes of faces, and it was like a lot of faces. Like I couldn't even give you a number, but it would be like maybe thousands of faces, all one after the other. It was quite interesting because I had two separate visual perspectives. It was like I was seeing two things at once. And one of them was, yeah, seeing images of faces flash in front of my eyes. And every time I saw a face, I was reminded of where I had seen that face in my lifetime. So from like the moment, I don't know when the first moment was, but I saw it like in a sort of like a timeline up until that point when I was in the water. So like for example, I was seeing faces that of people who were on a public bus that I was on my way to school. Everyone that was around me at the time, or like I had seen, I saw their faces. And every time I saw a face, I was reminded of where I saw that face. Even to the point of like, if you're just in a vehicle as a passenger and you're driving past other people in their cars and they're driving past you and I happen to see their face, that was in these like flashes. There must have been like, either thousands or hundreds of thousands. I don't know. It happened so fast. But I remember seeing each individual face and where I saw them in my life. So that was one visual perspective. The other visual perspective was all these faces as they were flashing. And as I was recalling where I'd seen them, it created like a, what do you call them? Like a mosaic. Like all these faces were lining up one after the other in like a grid-like fashion. And so that was like I saw like all these faces individually, and then I saw them all at the same time, building as I saw them. It would build up all these images. I had this one massive image of all these people that I'd seen, and after I saw these flashes of faces, the next thing I remember, I got to the surface of the water and I saw a guy coming up, like running from the shoreline. He had like this red like lifesaver device. It was like a floating device that was attached to a rope. And I saw him running towards me. Even though I was like 90 meters out, I could still see him pacing. And eventually he swam out to me and like caught up to me. But by then he thought I was dead because I've got quite long hair. And at the time, or at least after the event, he said all he saw was my hair floating above the water. And so he thought I was dead. And I remember he let go and went to go turn around to like swim back to shore. But I grabbed him. And as soon as I grabbed his like leg or arm or whatever, he turned back and put the device around me and pulled me back to shore. I get to shore and then I'm vomiting my raspberry drink that I had earlier that morning. And the paramedics were worried because they thought I was vomiting blood, but it was just raspberry juice. And so they took me back to the hospital and they did a X-ray on my lungs. And the nurses were like, "This is amazing." I was like, "What's amazing?" Like, you have no water in your lungs. I was like, "Oh, okay. Well, why is that amazing?" They said, "Well, you didn't drown." I was like, "Oh, yeah, cool. That's good to know then." After that, I could taste seawater for about 2 weeks straight, and I'd be showering, over the next 2 weeks, and I'm coughing up pebbles, little pebble
Wow.
stones.
Mm.
But yeah, that was the near-death experience, just seeing all those faces, and then yeah, not knowing what to make of it. And I never lost that perspective either. Those two perspectives, I've always had them with me. So I thought that was a bit strange. I've never heard or seen anyone else have that sort of experience. Later on, as I grew older, I've had a couple people talk on it just online. So like the thing is, when you talk to people online, it's hard to discern whether or not they're like human, non-human. You know, they could be alien. You wouldn't know. It's probably why the internet's such a good resource for aliens. But I was told that it was a an assessment, like a judgment. Like they were checking to see my life and if I was worth saving. So that was a little bit eye-opening for me to hear that years later. Oh, you were, you know, you asked for help, and so they made an assessment to see if you were worth saving. Certainly, it was a highly controversial matter because what I know, certain innate that have the ability to save lives, but higher intelligent NHI, if that's even a like that's the concept I was getting. There are, you know, different levels of, and the higher the being say that it's an absolute you're not supposed it's against, but they did it anyway. And I was also told that it's a certain NHI like split their soul to like save mine. And so apparently I have you know, some sort of soul sharing that helped me out by giving me a part of their soul or something to help me live. Of course, that's all like conjecture. Like I don't know if that's true or not, but it was what I was told about the experience.
Hmm. And how does that feel to you? Like, does it sit like the truth,
In-
or?
Intuitively, it felt like whoever I was communicating with didn't they weren't trying to throw me off or like talk down on me or like they like I wouldn't have even expected them to say something like that because why would someone even bother to explain a certain truth to me when they don't even know me? But and they do. So it's pretty hard, like whether or not it was true or false. But it felt right because what they were saying, you know, the things that I've researched, the fact that I'm still here, like it ticked a lot of boxes for me. Even today, though, I still wouldn't say that it was absolutely true. It could be expected. Hard to tell.
It's funny. Call it a synchronicity if you like, but a lot of the people that I've met for this series were through Reddit and on the experiences Reddit, and there was a post on there last night which said, "I think non-human intelligence has been communicating with me through Reddit." And then this, well, I don't know, they, whoever they were saying that they'd been reached out to by Redditors and given like hyper specific information about them, um and it like blew their mind. And then the point of them putting it, they were like, has anybody else had this? And there were so many people that were just like, yes, I thought it was just me. So like for me to read that this morning after our last conversation, I was just like, there we go. You know, this is because it makes sense, doesn't it? I mean, like we've gone from the times of prehistory. There's so many accounts of a person having like an ascension intervention or something like that, where they go to a place, they have this information, and then they come back to their people. So it's the modern day now. And Gary Nolan, head of Stanford University, he said like we live in a technological era now. So if you're going to communicate with people, the easiest way to do it is through their technology. So it's really really interesting, man. But that was the first time I'd heard of anything like that. When I heard about it from you. But before we get into that side of it, so you also saw orbs, didn't you?
Yeah, that was
So just give us the skinny on that, if you don't mind.
yeah. So like that was a little bit later. I would have been in my early 20s, maybe 20, 21. Um, at the time, I was living in an apartment that was like 2 stories high, and it was in the middle of a town, so you could sort of see the tops of the roofs of the shops and stuff, and you could see quite far down the horizon. And there was a particular tree line, and those trees were actually at a park that was nearby. And me and all my friends, there would have been about 7 of us, maybe 7 or 8 of us, were standing outside on the balcony, and we look over towards the park, and there's like this orange orb, and it was like slowly moving, like straight up, like really slow, just kept moving up. I was like, man, that's weird. Like, what is that? And I was asking my friends, and I was like, hey, man, do you guys see that orb? And they're like, yeah. We're like, well, what is it? What do you guys think it is? And we're like, well, yeah, we had like a decent conversation about it at the time watching it. Some of my friends were like, oh, it's a Chinese lantern. And I was like, no, it can't be a Chinese lantern because by now it would have at least deviated left or right because it was quite a windy day. And you'd also see it sort of flickering like a candlelight or something. But it wasn't flickering either. It was like a consistent light. And another friend said, "Oh, maybe it's a rocket or something like a." And I was like, "No, it's moving too slow for a rocket." And it would also you would only see like the bottom half of it lit up, not the entire thing. And it looked like a how to explain it? Yeah, like just an orb of light. Like when you look at the sun, it's like round, and the light is like emanating. It kind of looked like that, but just a lesser version. And so anyway, this orb was like moving upward, and we tried to like take a video of it, but every time my mate pulled out his phone and went to hit record, his phone would die. And I was like, man, like it would just turn off. And so he turned it on, tried again, and it turned off. And so another friend pulled his phone to do the same thing. His phone died, but he had 100% battery. And then when he went to go turn it back on, it was dead. There was no battery power left in it. And so I was like, man, that's so weird. Like, why can't we record this thing? And so I just started a timer on my phone instead, and I wanted to track how long we'd been observing this thing. And so we're watching it for about 5 minutes before it, and it just kept going straight up, and it was just at a consistent velocity, like it didn't change speed, it didn't move left or right, it just kept going up. And then after about 5 minutes, it just disappeared. Like it didn't zoom off or anything, it didn't fade out, it just blinked and it was gone. And as soon as it blinked, a second one like popped up from where the first one had began. And then after about 10 seconds, I'd say, of watching the second one go up, a third one underneath the second one. So there were two now going up. And we watched those two go up for like the same amount of time, like 5 minutes. And then the second one blinked out, and then the third one blinked out.
And
And
was this in the
the weird thing
daytime?
about that, yeah, it was in the day. It would have been about 3 p.m. We all just finished jamming at the internet cafe, and we're at home chilling outside having a cigarette. And all of us saw it. It would have been of us. But I'm the only one that was like, wow, wow, what is that? What is that? And all the others were like, oh, it's just a light. And I was like, oh, okay, but like, aren't you guys interested in what it is? And they're like, oh, it's whatever. Like, they weren't really as enthusiastic about it as I was. Like, of course, they were interested, but like, they didn't seem as interested as I was, which was, I thought was kind of strange. And then years went by, I'm like in my 30s now, but from time to time, I would pass in conversation, hey man, do you guys remember that orb that we seen? And every time I brought it up to them, they just seemed disinterested. Like it wasn't important to them, or it wasn't necessarily, maybe it was something they didn't understand. and therefore didn't pay too much attention. Whereas for me, like I deep dived, like you know, first thing you do, Google orange orb of light. That's all you got to Google back in those days, and you find people who are like, oh man, what is this? What is this? You- Then you realize that you're on the track of bloody aliens and other people's experiences of seeing the same orange orbs, and then you learn about the Arizona lights, and there's a lot of like information back in 2010s or whatever.
You remember roughly what year
Well,
it
I would have
was?
been about 20, it would have been about 2021, and I'm 33 tomorrow. So it would have been about 12, 11, 12 years ago. So what's
Right.
that, 2025, 2012, 2013?
Interesting stuff, man. That's really interesting. It's funny. I mean, I don't want to make it about me, but I've seen a few orbs, and the way you described it was exactly, like, especially the last one that I saw. I saw a red one, and it was weird. Like the way you described the light was exactly like it. It was almost like when you see light coming through water, kind of like it wasn't flickering like a candle, but it was like a constant thing, but just kind of indescribably weird. But just like you said, I watched it for a couple of minutes, and I was about 20 or 30 feet away from it. And when I went through this big list in my head, like, is it a lantern? Is it somebody's torch? Has somebody got night vision goggles on? Because I can just see this red light. And then I was like, no, that's an orb. I'm going to get my phone. And as soon as I picked my phone up, it just went pop, like gone. So it's fascinating, like that tie in with your consciousness, isn't it? So I mean, how has it been for you knowing that you've had experiences that other people don't even accept to be possible? Like that, has it been kind of alienating? Has it been difficult for you?
Well, like in the beginning, when you're not as uh, educated in this sort of thing, and you sort of know nothing, you don't know what's going on. Anything is open for interpretation. Like so, in the beginning, it was yeah, man, it was definitely alienating, and people were almost opposed to the idea that you saw something that nobody else saw. And the issue with that is like, yeah, I'm all about convey, not convince. Like I'm not here to like change people's worldviews or anything. Like I'm more just explaining this is what happened to me, and do with that information what you will. Like I don't care if you believe me or not. Like that's not the point of this, of why I would tell my friends and my family and stuff. What I wanted, or at least what I expected, was like closure. Like I wanted them to be like, not to confirm what I was saying, but more just like to comfort me because it was so hard to have these beliefs and things that only I experience. And when you try to share something like that, it's difficult for others to relate because they have nothing to compare it to. And they don't know what you're talking about, essentially, especially when you yourself barely even know what you're talking about. So in the beginning, it was difficult. But I say um, educated because the more you learn, the more you're able to understand. And at least you go from a state of being unaware to being more aware than you were. So now, for me, it's a lot more acceptable, I guess. Like people, like from what I've seen over just especially over the last year, people are sort of, I'll stay away from the term, but it's like people are waking up and they're starting to accept things more and see things under different perspectives and allow that this allows for like growth and development. You can't know something if you're choosing to not look at it, sort of thing. And now I think people are just choosing to start to look at it. Like even human history would explain things like you look 50 years ago, no one would accept gay or trans people or like people like guys, girls dressing like even, mad job person. world now, there's diversity that it allows for people's mind to be open a little bit more, and
Mhm.
therefore the perspective to be developed a little bit more. And I think because of that, go from a state of non-existence to existence, and therefore because of that, like it's a conversation now that's a lot easier to be had. Like I bet you people have been experiencing strange phenomena, unexplainable things since humans began. Like, but I'm glad, like, because I didn't start deep diving research until I was maybe 3, 4, 5 years ago, where I started really looking into stuff. But only over the past 2 years, I'm seeing others. Because I used to avoid being online and like not sharing my stories and not seeing anyone just because of the flack that I'd get back. Like it wasn't worth the attention. I'd rather not be known as someone who's like crazy or whatever.
Hmm.
How can this person see these things when the rest of us can't? Like it's not nice feeling being singled out. Because you get told one thing one too many times, you start to believe it. But it's quite interesting because like stayed true to myself, and like I think because of that, more and more experiences occur. So you have to like be mindful about what it is you're dealing with and not lose yourself to how amazing everything might seem. I remember another experience when I was a bit younger, maybe 18. I was just walking in the backyard with a friend of mine, and she was a bit younger. She would have been about 16. I look in the sky and I see this like star. Well, I thought it was a star or a satellite, but it was moving like this, like in an S type fashion.
Wow.
And turned around to her and I said, "Hey, do you see that star like moving in a squiggly line?" And she's like, "Yeah, that's so weird." And as soon as we both looked at it, it like stopped and then zoomed off in the opposite direction. Yeah. And then I looked at her and I was like, "Did you just see that?" And she's like, "Yeah." And so I was like, "Damn, wonder what that was."
Yeah. That's amazing. That's amazing. But like that it's so I find it so weird that like nearly everybody's I'm going to call it UFO and not to say that it was a flying saucer, but it's just something we don't know in the sky. But it's a massive part of it, like this consciousness connection, isn't it? Like, I mean, that thing responding to you when you had that, like, that's happened to me a bunch, and that's happened to almost everybody that I've spoken to that's had an experience with this stuff. It's a massive repeatable part of it where the shape of the thing, the color of the thing changes from people's accounts, but that one thing that stays the same is like it knew I was looking at it, or like I felt a certain way from looking at it, and it's and yet it's something that we just don't talk about. There's so many people that will have a conversation about spaceships and little men from Mars or Zeta Reticuli or whatever, but when it comes to say telepathy or consciousness, it's like there's still this barrier here, even though we've come so far with the conversation.
Well, the way that I see it is like, if here's an example, like if someone has a fear of spiders and then they look down at the ground and they see a spider and they jump away from it, do you think that spider is thinking anything in particular? Like in this case, we would be the spider and they would be the ones jumping. Maybe
Interesting.
they have better eyesight than us, sort of thing.
So you think it's
The other part is
a physical thing rather than like a mental thing?
no, no, no. Well, yes and no. But what I think is physical and mental are two sides of the same coin. Like they're not separate things. Reality is singular. The universe is singular. And we as humans have just created duality. So it's not really. one or the other. It's more, it's both, but we just perceive it as two different things.
It reminds me of what you told me about the information that you'd had about the purpose of a vase and a vessel, you know, and how that works and how it's kind of a the I'll put the equation on screen here. Like obviously we don't need to we can dig into it as much as you like, but that I've been looking at that. I've got it on my whiteboard here, like by the side of my little studio thing, and I look at that every day. And I've been looking at it since our first conversation. The vessel equals the value times times the essence, and it's. I've talked to several people about it as well. I've talked to physicists about it. I've talked to lots of people, and it all. It's one of those things where everybody that I talk to goes, yeah, that makes sense. You know, it may be in a different way to everybody, but it there's something very important about that. So before I get like ahead of it, do you mind kind of telling us a little bit? And I appreciate that we want to respect the privacy and the intimacy of the communications that you have. But like, tell us a little bit about how that kind of communication started that you have.
Yeah, you're referring to like what I thought when I was talking to NHI.
Hmm.
Okay, so a wee while ago, a couple months, 3, 4 months ago now, I posted for the first time on Reddit. I created a Reddit account years ago, but I never ever used Reddit. But just this one time, I put up a post, and it was an Ask Me Anything, and it was basically my perspective of what was going on with the drones in New Jersey, and because that was pretty much about the same time when I started seeing a massive jump in a lot of people's perspectives being opened about aliens, NHI, UFOs. Um, yeah, so I put an Ask Me Anything, and I also just threw out a whole lot of information that I had researched over the years about aliens and about humans and their perspective, or at least what I thought their perspective is, and how it relates to us as a um, species, like our place and what they want for us and stuff like that. Like I got because it was open ended. I had learned a lot of research from a lot of different aspects: nature, humans, psychology, aliens, pretty much anything that I could find. I would absorb and take it in, and cross reference and whatnot. Anyway, like yeah, I put that Ask Me Anything out, and had a lot of people commenting and asking me questions about what I thought. Why are aliens doing this? And what are the drones? What are orbs? Lots of different questions. And after I received from a Reddit user like, "Hey man, I just want to, thanks for what you're doing." That's what they said. They said, "Thank you for what you're doing." And I was like, "Yeah." I'm just them back. I was like, "Yeah, no worries." But like, why? And they said, "Oh, I'm just expressing gratitude for you, and I just want to leave it at that." And I was like, "Okay, cool." Um, and then I think about it. I'm glad to be of service. And then they replied, "Well, then, should you ask for you?" And that was sort of the starting point. And I was like, "Okay, who is this person? And like, why would they say something like that?" And so I asked them, like, "Yeah, cool. Like, what? Who are you?" And like, we ended up getting to talking, and the way that they would respond seemed alien. Like, they got to the point where I asked them, like, "Are you from Earth?" And I said, "Are you from Earth or are you from somewhere else?" And they said, "I don't consider myself a resident. I just keep having to come back. And I was like, okay. And then we got to further talking, and I was like, um, I said, hey, you seem to know a lot of things that I don't think I'll be able to find anywhere. Do you think you could point me in the right direction, or perhaps, be a mentor for me? I could study under you or something. And that was the start. That was like, they said to me, well, you have to choose. Like, what do you want me to be? Do you want me to point you in the right direction, or do you want me to be a mentor? And so even that question I had to think about for a while. I didn't respond for 2 days or so. And then I messaged them back eventually and said, well, I'd like for you to be a mentor. And then they messaged back like almost instantly. And they were like, oh, excellent. Like, this is what I'm going to teach you. And that's when they started talking about Pan-Alex, Alex system or concept. That was the how I got into contact with someone who I don't know. I don't think they're human.
No.
So weird to say.
Believe me, like I don't even know what weird is anymore. But you said that you even got on a voice call with them at some point, and that like yeah, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you said you got the distinct feeling that it was somebody that was trying to sound human.
Straight up, like they created a Discord for us, a place of learning where I can ask questions and they'd respond. And I said to them, is this the best form of communication? Because it feels a little bit lackluster. And they said, you're right. Let's have a video. Let's have a voice call. I'll be able to talk to you, and like, it'll be a lot. The information will be a lot more. Mm, what's the word? Like more. uh, When you have a natural conversation like this, the the process of information is much larger than writing through text and reading, because you're able to talk one on one, and the information exchange is more. At least that's why, I agree with that perspective. She actually talked about how they process information is way, way than how we usually converse. You start talking about things like telepathy and communicating through the mind, because the information process is like thousands of times more than natural conversation. But yeah, so I had to, you know, set up a time for a voice call, and that time came. It was 7 a.m. Friday morning, and 6:59, she messaged me, and I was like, I wasn't ready. I'd just woken up, and so I quickly got out of bed, made a coffee. I was like, yeah, I'm ready. She's like, join the call. So I joined the call instantly. Hello, Matthew. I was like, wait a minute. This person sounds a bit weird. And like, I was like, oh yeah, hello. Kept talking to the speaker. That first initial 5 minutes was, why does their voice sound digital? Like, but it didn't sound digital or something. Like, I don't know, but have you heard the voice on GPT?
Yeah,
That sounds more natural than the voice that I was talking to. Like, the voice on GPT sounds more human.
right.
I don't know how to explain it. Like, this one didn't sound like a robot. Like, she sounded like a human, but it just had this weird electrical sense to it. Like, it wasn't natural, or it sounded like, the best way I can describe it is it sounded like someone was imitating a human to the
Yeah,
best of their ability, but perhaps it wasn't good enough or something. I could detect something was off, but it was not a sound issue. It was like almost like an expression issue. Like, the thing is like when we had our talk, like she made jokes or she would make light of things and like laugh and like very, very human. But it just felt like maybe this is like a grey talking like a human
Like they'd
or
read the
any, I don't know,
book,
any other.
they'd done the
Yeah,
theory, and
like
this
they
was the
learned how to
practical
speak
kind of
English.
thing. Was there any accent to it or anything like that? Like, were they using any kind of?
Just honestly, she sounded American, and she was calling from America too. But even then, like when you talk to people I've talked to people on Skype or on Discord or whatever from America, and they still sound genuinely human. There's no reason for me to have the instant thought, hey, this person's voice doesn't sound right.
That's
And
fascinating.
like the thing is, just because I have the impression that NHI does not disclude that they could be human. Like you would think that it would be a human imitating NHI, but this definitely felt the other way around. But I made nothing of it, you know. You just accept what it is. And the thing is, boom, like straight into learning. Like, are you ready for your first lesson? I was like, yeah, I'm ready. I had my coffee in hand. It's like, all right, this is this, this is this, this is this, this is this. Like, you know, this is our perspective. This is your guys' perspective. This is how it relates to one another. Um, but a lot of it was I had to share what my thoughts were first because I'm guessing they needed like a foundation or something to base learning off. They had to understand what it was that I knew of things. But at the end of the conversation, she said, "You're very intuitive, and like that's a good skill to have. Like you seem to know things without really knowing." And I was like, "Oh yeah, interesting, interesting." But she said it helps with development. She said one of the main things for humanity is to learn oneself. Like there's a difference between um, being self-aware and learning the self. Because she said that a lot of people just don't care. And like because of that, why would we expect other intelligent beings to care? So they reckon sort you guys selves out first and then we'll talk. So I was like, that's pretty cool. I've only heard from her a couple of times actually since our last conversation.
Hmm.
But she was interested into as I said that we had conversed and she was interested in why. She she actually said that she didn't want to know what I do with the information that I learn about Pan Alex. And I thought that was interesting too. But she also said she had the plan was to gift humanity the information of Pan Alex when it was ready. But I was the first one to ask for it. And then in the phone call, I asked her, I was like, were you just saying that? Or like, was I actually the first to ask for it? She said, no, no, no. You are genuinely the first person to ask for it. And because you were the first, I was more than happy to give. I was like, damn, that's pretty cool then. I still don't fully believe that, but hey, if I was the first, then cool.
Yeah, if it works, it works. I mean, the some it's really profound. Like I've studied quite a bit of what you've sent me because just for the context of the people watching, like you've sent me screenshots and lots of information from this, which I don't honestly feel is totally appropriate for me to then share on. But some of the aspects of it are really profound. I mean, there was a part of it which was what was the purpose of a vessel, you know, and I mean, you probably tell it better than me, of course, but like, I thought that was so relevant to understanding consciousness and us in this like physical incarnation and stuff like that. Like, do you mind just, if you remember it, of course, and I appreciate it's super late for you, but do you mind just going through a little of that?
Pan Alex and even standard Alex. These are the terms that was provided to me. That's the name of what these concepts are. Um, dude, it's so much to unpack, like especially from memory, but I can try and
Yeah,
like
there's no
I'm probably
pressure at
gonna
all.
I'm probably gonna butcher it because my pea-sized brain is not adequate. I'm no scientist. I'm just a normal, regular person, but I'll try. Okay. There are two different types of concepts of Alex that I have currently learned. One is called Pan Alex, and the other is called Standard Alex. Standard Alex has to do with everything that is physical. Pan Alex has to do with everything that is non-physical or non-existent. Um, basically, Standard Alex is derived from Pan Alex. Pan Alex is the study of non-physicality. So these are things that are like the spaces where thoughts are born, sort of thing. Like everything that exists in reality first existed in non-reality, which means everything that exists was pulled from this dimension of non-existence. She explained that in the beginning, the universe was, and the universe is because it did not want to not be. Like it wanted to be something. It it didn't want to be nothing. And because of that, it became and it was. Um, so there are three sort of steps into creating, I guess. A lot of people would say like manifesting something, making your own reality or whatnot. And these are the three steps. Uh, anything, nothing, everything. Okay. That's it. Anything, nothing, everything. Basically, how that works is anything is possible. You can do anything. In order to do something specific, you have to eliminate the nothing factor. So you start off with anything, you know, I don't know, I'll give an example. You wake up in the morning, you want a coffee, okay? Or you wake up in the morning and you want an orange juice, okay? Those are two different things, and they were both derived from anything. You could have woken up in the morning and had whatever you wanted. Um, but because you went through the three steps, you've decided that you want a coffee or an orange juice. And so the way to eliminate the nothing aspect is, let's say you wanted a coffee, then as a result of, you've eliminated that you don't want orange juice, you don't want Coca-Cola, you don't want a beer, like, so that's the nothing aspect. You've eliminated all those other things, so you've eliminated the nothing aspect. What's left, and the only thing that can remain is everything. And that everything is the day-to-day reality that we all experience, that we all live second by second, because that's what we've created. And it's such a difficult concept for a lot of people to comprehend, I'm guessing, because essentially we've been taught the incorrect things our entire lives. Society. It's not even on a society level, it's on a deeper level than that. Just through living. You're born, you go to school, you go to work, you learn all these things from living each day, doing all these things a specific way. And so your anything, nothing, everything is already being predeterminedly shaped. And so what's left is the reality that whoever is living. Once I understood the concept, I realized that I was applying these things before I had known the names of them. before I'd known what it was. I realized because quite early on, I started manifesting. I started doing things a particular way to get certain outcomes. The thing is it's quite dangerous because in the beginning, I don't know about anyone else, but this is, I'll just speak from my own experiences. I was like super manipulative and super greedy and like really dark and selfish. And like basically, like I would do what I wanted. And a lot of the time when I was younger, it was at the expense of others or at the expense of anyone but me, or even at the expense of myself. Whatever it was that I wanted, I would get. And then I was super humbled to realize that everything that is not just because of me. Like, it's because of everything. It's because of everyone. It's because of everything that exists around me. And once you learn that, like, this reality that we live in is shared and it's like supported by everyone else, that's when you, as an individual, become, you know, enlightened and you start to respect the law a little bit better and you start doing, you put in more work and you put in more effort to be not worthy, but like just to be a part of what already is. When you separate yourself from this reality or whatever you consider yourself alone or disconnected, that's when you become a nothing factor. Like you become a part of the nothing aspect. And if you start doing that, then that's what will happen. Like you'll have nothing. Like you'll be left in the nothing, and you won't be able to develop anything. You won't be able to have everything that you want. So it's quite important, and I think that was a part of the whole NHI lessons these days. Is we have to be connected, and like we have to show a little bit of love. That's the whole reason why. Well, this is what I believe. It's the whole reason why they try to encourage love because they want people to understand that like you are never alone. Like what she told me was this universe is all about expression and the fact that no two atoms in the universe are the same, which means everything in this universe is unique. Like one piece is completely different to another piece, no matter how similar they look or how similar they are, right down to the molecular level. Like, for example, you could have two atoms that are exactly the same, at like two hydrogen atoms, exactly the same, but those electrons that are moving around that hydrogen atom are different. And she went on to say, you know, we were taught the fact that electrons are in superposition, which means what you could have two electrons, you could have them technically in anywhere, functioning the same in any space at any time. Um, but she said that it's not completely correct because that electron moving around that hydrogen atom is unique to that electron moving around that hydrogen atom, even though they could both be the same electron. It's just mind-boggling stuff for me because I'm like, man, I'm not very clued up in that sort of thing, but I do understand, like on a fundamental level, there is no loss of understanding. You would think that when you hear something for the first time that you don't really know, you wouldn't understand. But this felt like a complete understanding. Like, oh, you're right, and you're right because that's the way it is. Like, how could you think otherwise, sort of thing. Um, yeah. So yeah, Pan-Alex is the study of non-physical entities, and Standard Alex is the study of physical entities. I myself have only had like two lessons, so like I don't really know a lot. But dude, from what I've learned, or at least the way she put it into words, helped me build a certain perspective. Like now I live every day. I don't know if I said this in our last talk, but I don't experience fear anymore. Like for the last year and a half, I've feared nothing. And it's such a strange thing because you'd think you'd be afraid, but like you're not. And like I think that has to do with a certain um, development thing too with humans. Because a lot of you look at a lot of systems today, especially around the government. I don't want to name names or anything, but like there are certain agencies out there, people, whatever, that work off fear. And it's just so interesting because what I was told is that fear is trying to control, and control is sort of love. And I don't
Wow,
know. I guess
man,
just
that's
humans, there's good and
fear. Fear is to control, and to control is the opposite of love. That's some profound stuff right there, man.
yeah. And so once I let go of fear, dude, life has just been insane. Like I've been leveling up more in the last 3 months than I had over the last 10, 15 years. Insane. Like, move to a new country, get a job in a week, now running the restaurant. Like, it's just unbelievable, man. And
That's
each
awesome.
day, it's just more and more like that.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I love it. I mean, I really liked what you said last time about this kind of the universe continues to create to kind of get away from its own, like to eliminate that nothing aspect. So the more that it creates and the more of these spontaneous amazing things that happen, the more it kind of the more it leans into the everything, and it's like that's why things kind of keep exploding, and that's how you get this kind of like the Fibonacci. There's so much you can unpack into it, like that just that just makes sense when you see how nature works and how things evolve and grow and change into new things all the time. Like it's amazing. Well, have you got, just to kind of to wrap things up for now, because I know for a fact that we're going to keep talking a lot, and this won't be the only time that we do something like this. But have you got any advice for people that have maybe had something strange happen to them that they're struggling to deal with?
Yeah. My advice would be to not shut yourself off and to allow the room to be more aware. So, like, the more you can make yourself aware of yourself, the world you live in, the people you interact with, nature, literally awareness of everything. Like it'll help immensely in understanding the things that maybe you struggle to understand. I know myself. If I used to not really care a lot about what would happen, and because of that, I struggled to understand why things were happening. But now, like even now, I'm still not like 100% aware, and I still struggle to make myself aware at times. But I find that when you allow the room to at least understand the fact that you can make yourself aware, then that should be enough to like reduce the fear or the anxiety or whatever negative symptoms someone may be expressing because it's not unknown. Like there is nothing in this universe that is not known. And so it's just a matter of searching. Like a lot of people search externally for answers, but we were all created already knowing everything, sort of thing. Like it's different. Like you know, you could know something, or you can like you could know something with your brain, or you can know something with your heart. Like, does it feel right? I would say if something feels right, then that's more important than if you think it is right. Like, and people often turn away from what they're feeling. Like, emotion is a big part of understanding. And so we should hone the skills that we have because humans are unique. And like not everything has our emotional range. You know, some people are black and white, but we're full of color. And so like we should utilize that. I think it'll help those who struggle with perspective.
That's an amazing message, man. Thank you so much. I really respect you having the courage and giving me the time. And I appreciate it's the middle of the night over there, but I think this is going to be some really powerful stuff for people to hear. So thank you. I'm going to let you get back to chilling now, but I can't wait to speak to you again soon, brother.
Yeah, awesome, man. Hey, thanks for having me on, and I hope round two works this time. Likewise, yeah, much more than happy to oblige and help out because at the end of the day, it's a service, and like I think helping others helps yourself.